Alright, higher calling posse. Strap your swamp boots tight. You swamp faith swamp buzzsaw renegades. Cuz we're storming into day 29 of our 30 days of faith swamp thrashing riot like a pack of swamp outlaws slinging chaos into a swamp chill knockout that'd make a swamp gator chugging moonshine on a meth-fueled rampage jealous as heck and ready to salute. We're swamp breakdancing with Jesus till the swamp mud shakes and the moonshine barrels bust wide open. And you're still riding this swamp rocket with me, holy swamp guacamole. You're tougher than a swamp alligator wrestling a chainsaw in a moonshine-soaked hurricane with a swamp faith smirk. I'm blasting swamp holy air bazookas of hype straight through your screen. Posse. Cuz we've been swamp roaring through this faith-forged brawl like a jet fuel roller coaster tearing through the swamplands with a triple shot of swamp faith swagger that'd make the swamp devil blink. Let's rewind the swamp tape and strut those victories. Cuz 28 days in, you're a swamp faith legend who don't flinch at the chaos. Day 1. Starting your day with God. Swamp prayer napalmed my Tuesday chaos into a muck-eating swamp boom. Day 2. Why faith matters every morning. Swamp faith choke slammed my Wednesday grump. Day 3. Finding peace before the chaos. Swamp peace ninja start my Monday meltdown. Day 4. A verse to carry you through. Joshua chapter 1 verse 9 torched my Tuesday trash. Day 5. Worship in the quiet moments. Psalm chapter 46 verse 10 unleashed a swamp holy ruckus. Day 6. Gratitude at dawn. Swamp thanks lit my Thursday fog. Day 7. Resting in God's promises. Romans chapter 8 verse 28 blazed my Wednesday flop. Day 8. Faith when life gets busy. Swamp grit powered my Tuesday hustle. Day 9. Praying through the storm. Philippians chapter 4 verse 6 slammed my Monday mess. Day 10. Strength in weakness. 2 Corinthians chapter 12 verse 9 swamp jacked my Thursday week. Day 11. Loving others midday. Swamp faith hugged my Friday grump. Day 12. Trusting God with small things. Swamp trust torched my Wednesday nitpick. Day 13. Overcoming midday doubts. Swamp truth blasted my Tuesday wobble. Day 14. A pause for peace. Swamp chill ninja'd my Monday rush. Day 15. Facing fear with faith. Psalm chapter 23 verse 4 swamp guarded my Thursday dread. Day 16. When plans fail. Swamp faith flipped my Friday bust. Day 17. Patience in the waiting. Swamp steady held my Wednesday lag. Day 18. Faith through pain. Swamp grace carried my Tuesday ache. Day 19. Forgiveness in the afternoon. Matthew chapter 6 verse 14 swamp freed my Monday grudge. Day 20. Hope when you're tired. Swamp hope jacked my Thursday slump. Day 21. Standing firm in chaos. Ephesians chapter 6 verse 13 swamp armored my Friday storm. Day 22. Reflecting on God's goodness. Swamp thanks lit my Tuesday dusk. Day 23. Ending with gratitude. 1 Thessalonians chapter 5 verse 18 swamp thanked my Wednesday muck. Day 24. Standing in God's truth. John chapter 8 verse 32 swamp slayed my Thursday lies. Day 25. Letting go of the day. 1 Peter chapter 5 verse 7 torched my Friday chaos. Day 26. Prayer under the stars. Psalm chapter 8 verses 3 to 4 blasted my night muck. Day 27. Resting in his presence. Psalm chapter 46 verse 10 hushed my swamp roar. Day 28. Faith that carries you to tomorrow. Jeremiah chapter 29 verse 11 slung me steady. And now, day 29's dropping a swamp gut puncher. 30 days of faith. What I've learned. Swamp life's a raging swamp storm, but what's the swamp holy haul? That's our rumble. Posse. Swamp picture this, 29 days deep. You're swamp fried, work's a buzzsaw. Kids are gremlins. Bills piling, chaos clawing. Swamp ever wonder what's the takeaway? That's me, Swamp Friday. Chaos hit, but 30 days taught me, faith's a swamp king strut. We're swamp storming 90 minutes, tale of a month flipped. 2 Timothy chapter 1 verse 7 roaring. Lessons to carry. Grab your brew, coffee, tea, or swamp moonshine, and let's swamp torch this trail. Alright, higher calling posse. Let's swamp dive deep into the why. Why the heck do you need to total up this 30-day swamp faith riot like a swamp outlaw counting moonshine jugs after a meth-fueled swamp bender that'd make a swamp gator sit up and salute with a swamp holy roar? Swamp life's a chaos buzzsaw. Posse. Days pile worries like a swamp storm freight train on a jet fuel roller coaster tearing through the swamplands with a triple shot of moonshine madness that'd choke a swamp shark. Picture this. You wake up, boom, work's screaming like a banshee on a Red Bull meth spree. Your inbox is a swamp mud tsunami crashing through your swamp sanity with emails piling thicker than swamp gumbo cooked by a moonshine-drunk swamp gator after a week-long swamp rave. Your kids tossing glitter tantrums like a gremlin on a sugar-high rampage that'd make a swamp devil jealous as heck and ready to join the swamp party. And your phone's buzzing like a hornet's nest caught in a swamp hurricane. Texts from the boss hollering, "Where's my report, swamp punk? You're late again, you're swamp toast." Calls from the school yelling, "Your kid's a glitter terrorist. Come get him now or we're calling the swamp cops." Alerts from the bank screaming, "You're broke, swamp rat. Pay up or we're sending the swamp sharks." All clawing at your swamp-fried soul like a pack of swamp sharks circling a moonshine-soaked carcass ready to feast on your swamp guts. By nightfall, posse, you're not just tired. You're swamp drowning in a worry-soaked mess thicker than swamp mud bricks stacked by a swamp gator on a moonshine binge. And after 29 days of this swamp faith riot, you're swamp fried, pacing the swamp lands like a ragged swamp zombie with guts clawing and no off switch in sight. Swamp ever feel that weight, fam? Like 30 days hit you like a swamp tornado on a meth rampage. And you're staggering, growling, staring at the swamp ceiling. Why'd I miss that deadline? Boss is gonna swamp fry me like a swamp fish on a spit. Why'd I snap at my kid? I'm a swamp flop dad. How am I paying that bill? We're swamp screwed, chaos roaring. Faith flickering like a swamp candle in a hurricane about to blow out into swamp darkness. That's me, Swamp Friday after Swamp Friday. Chaos clawing, till I'm a swamp wreck, 29 days deep. And I'm wondering, what's the swamp point? But here's the swamp kicker. Posse. God didn't sling you through 30 days of swamp faith fury just to leave you swamp drowning like a swamp zombie hauling a swamp mud load till you're a faith-forged wreck pacing the swamplands. Check this swamp holy Molotov cocktail. 2 Timothy chapter 1 verse 7. Straight from the Swamp King's swamp apostle Paul. Roaring through the swamp prison like a grizzled swamp vet with a megaphone and a bad swamp attitude. For God has not given us a spirit of fear, but of power and of love and of self-discipline. Swamp boom. That's not some weak sauce pep talk to tuck in your swamp pocket. Fam. That's a faith-forged flamethrower blasting your swamp worries into ash and smoke hotter than a swamp bonfire torching a moonshine jug into a swamp night inferno. Not a spirit of fear, God's growling. I didn't wire you to cower like a swamp chicken. Punk, chaos ain't your swamp boss. Power, love, self-discipline, he's flexing those holy biceps. I forged you with swamp holy muscle. Swamp heart, and swamp grit, 30 days hauled you here. Swamp life's a raging swamp hurricane, work's a buzzsaw shredding your swamp soul. Kids are gremlins bombing your swamp house into swamp confetti. Bills are sharks circling with swamp teeth bared, but totaling this 30-day swamp faith riot? That's your swamp Molotov, torch the doubt. Flex the lessons. Strut steady like a swamp king with a moonshine swagger. Swamp ever feel lost in the swamp storm? I have, Swamp Friday. Chaos clawing my guts. Work emails piling like a swamp mud avalanche crashing my swamp sanity. Kids glitter tantrums hitting like a swamp riot warzone that'd make a swamp devil proud. Bills stacking like a swamp pyramid ready to bury me, pacing till dawn like a swamp zombie. But looking back, God, 30 days taught me, his power slammed in like a swamp holy haymaker. I'm here. Swamp punk, and lessons lit the swamp night like a swamp faith torch. Why recap, posse? 'Cause 30 days ain't just swamp noise, it's a swamp holy forge. A swamp faith brawl that turns swamp zombies into swamp kings. Real swamp talk. Chaos cranks loud, work flops replay like a swamp horror flick on a meth loop. Why'd I miss that deadline? Boss is gonna swamp roast me. Kid tantrums echo like a gremlin rave in your swamp skull. Why'd I snap? I'm a swamp wreck. Bills stack. How am I paying that? Brains a swamp tornado spinning. What if till you're clawing the swamp sheets? Swamp science backs it. Swamp doctors say stress hormones like cortisol spike when you don't process the swamp storm. Jacking your heart rate like a swamp gator on a moonshine sprint. Torching your sleep till you're a swamp zombie, grumpy, weak, faith flickering, but totaling it, posse? That's your swamp holy reset. 2 Timothy chapter 1 verse 7 roars. Power, love, discipline, torch the muck, flex the hall, strut steady. Swamp ever tried staggering without looking back? I have. Swamp Friday. Works a buzzsaw. Kid's a gremlin. I'm growling. Paced till dawn. No lessons. Swamp wreck. But recap. Day 1. Prayer. Day 15. Courage. Faith carried me. That's why. Recap slugs chaos. Grows your swamp faith strut. Alright, higher calling posse. Let's swamp dive into a swamp tale that's gonna hit you like a swamp gator chugging moonshine on a meth-fueled rampage with a chainsaw strapped to its back and a swamp holy roar that'd shake the swamplands till the moonshine barrels bust wide open. Buckle up tight, cuz this 30-day swamp faith riot nearly swamp drowned me in a worry-soaked swamp mess till faith slung a swamp chill lifeline hotter than a swamp bonfire torching a moonshine jug into a swamp night inferno that'd make a swamp devil jealous as heck. We're talking a swamp journey through 30 days of chaos, lessons, and swamp faith fury. Let's rewind the swamp tape and strut through the swamp highlights. Posse. Cuz this swamp outlaw's got a swamp tale that'll make you roar like a swamp king owning the swamplands with a moonshine-soaked swagger. Day 1. Tuesday. Chaos kicks off like a swamp ninja with a grudge and a bad swamp attitude. Alarm shrieks at 5:45 a.m. like a banshee on a Red Bull meth spree. Ripping me out of a dream where I'm swamp fishing with Jesus on a calm swamp lake with a moonshine glow, rude wake-up call. Posse. I stumble out, bleary-eyed like a swamp zombie who's been pacing the swamplands all night. Trip over a kid's glitter cannon toy, boom. Glitter explodes like a gremlin's prank gone nuclear. Sticking to my swamp fried face like I'm a swamp disco ball headed for a swamp rave nobody invited me to. Coffee maker's busted. Spits brown sludge like a swamp toad with a hangover that's seen better swamp days. Car won't start. Battery flatter than a swamp pancake squashed by a moonshine jug under a swamp gator's foot after a swamp bender. I'm cursing like a swamp pirate who's lost his swamp ship to a swamp storm. Kicking tires like a swamp rat on a rampage. Neighbors gawking like I'm a swamp zombie on a meltdown, kids screaming. Daddy, cereal's mush. Fix it now, and I'm sprinting to catch a ride. Glitter sparkling in the sun like I'm a swamp freak show parading through the swamplands. Version 1. No faith. Paced till 2 a.m. Worries clawing my guts. Work's gonna swamp fry me. Kid's a swamp terrorist, sleeps toast. Swamp zombie wreck. Version 2. Faith redo, God. Start my day, torch this muck. 5 seconds. Prayer napalmed the swamp chaos like a swamp holy Molotov cocktail. Peace slammed in like a swamp holy haymaker. Swamp steady ruled the swamp dawn. Lesson 1. Starting with God turns swamp mess into swamp gold. Prayer's my swamp rocket. Day 10, Thursday. Weak as a swamp bat with no wings. Chaos hits like a swamp shark on a moonshine-soaked feeding frenzy. Works a buzzsaw, boss drops a deadline bomb. Finish this by 5 or you're swamp toast. Swamp punk, I ain't playing. Emails pile like a swamp mud avalanche crashing my swamp sanity, 40 unread. 8 marked, urgent, in caps like they're yelling at my swamp fried soul louder than a swamp gator roaring on a moonshine bender. I'm growling like a swamp dog who's had enough. Slamming desks like a swamp brawler in a cage match. Coffee spilling like swamp blood on my last clean shirt that's now a swamp casualty headed for the swamp grave. Kid's school calls, he's sick. Come get him, I'm pacing. Guts clawing, I'm weak. Swamp fried. Version 1. No faith. Collapsed, till dawn. Boss hates me. I'm done. Swamp zombie flop. Version 2. God. Jack me up, your strength. 5 seconds. 2 Corinthians chapter 12 verse 9 roared. My power in your weak. Strength slammed in like a swamp holy freight train. Swamp steady flexed. Lesson 2. Week's a win. God's power turns swamp bats into swamp kings. Day 15, Thursday. Fear clawing like a swamp tornado on a moonshine binge. Work emails pile, boss growls. Fix it or you're swamp toast. Kids tantrums hit. Glitter bombs the swamp house into a swamp riot warzone. Bills stack, phone buzzes. You're broke. I'm pacing. What if I flop? Version 1. No faith. Paced till dawn. Fear choking, swamp zombie wreck. Version 2. God, guard me. Psalm chapter 23 verse 4. 5 seconds. Courage slammed in like a swamp holy haymaker. Swamp steady ruled. Lesson 3. Faith slays fear. God's my swamp sentry. Day 25, Friday. Swamp fried to the swamp bone. Works a buzzsaw, emails avalanche. Boss roars. Kids a gremlin, glitter cannon chaos. Bills pile, pay up. I'm pacing, I'm done. Version 1. No faith. Paced till dawn. Swamp zombie. Version 2. God, take it. 1 Peter chapter 5 verse 7. 5 seconds. Calm hit like a swamp holy freight train. Lesson 4. Letting go torches muck. God hauls it. Swamp recap. Posse. 30 days of swamp faith fury. Day 1. Prayer napalmed. Start with God. Day 10. Strength jacked. Weeks a win. Day 15. Courage slew. Faith guards. Day 25. Letting go ruled. Drop it. Diff. Chaos chokes versus faith flexes. 30 days forged a swamp king strut. Swamp reel. Lessons flipped my swamp mess. God's grip hauled me through the swamplands with a moonshine-soaked swagger. Alright, higher calling posse. Let's swamp dive deep into the Word. God's swamp holy playbook that's been torching chaos and forging swamp faith through 30 days of swamp storm fury like a swamp outlaw slinging a swamp Molotov cocktail hotter than a swamp bonfire blasting a moonshine jug into a swamp night inferno. We're not just flipping swamp pages here. Fam. We're unleashing a faith-forged flamethrower that'd make a swamp gator on a meth-fueled rampage sit up and salute with a swamp holy roar. Let's start with the swamp anchor. 2 Timothy chapter 1 verse 7. Straight from the Swamp King's swamp apostle Paul. Roaring through the swamp prison like a grizzled swamp vet with a megaphone and a bad swamp attitude. For God has not given us a spirit of fear, but of power and of love and of self-discipline. Swamp boom. That's no weak sauce pep talk to tuck in your swamp pocket. Posse. That's a swamp holy haymaker blasting your swamp worries into ash and smoke. Not a spirit of fear, God's growling. I didn't wire you to cower like a swamp chicken when the swamp storm hits. Punk, chaos ain't your swamp boss. Power, love, self-discipline, he's flexing those holy biceps. I've forged you with swamp holy muscle to slug chaos. Swamp heart to love through the muck. And swamp grit to strut steady. Swamp life's a buzzsaw. Works shredding your swamp soul like a swamp shark on a moonshine binge. Kids are gremlins bombing your swamp house into swamp confetti. Bills are sharks circling with swamp teeth bared, but 30 days with this? That's your swamp faith forge. Posse. Lessons that turn swamp zombies into swamp kings. Day 4. Joshua chapter 1 verse 9 roars like a swamp general. Have I not commanded you? Be strong and courageous. Do not be afraid, do not be discouraged. For the Lord your God will be with you wherever you go. Swamp boom. That's no swamp whisper. That's a faith-forged flamethrower. Tuesday chaos hit. Work emails piled like a swamp mud avalanche. Boss growling. Fix it or you're swamp toast. I'm pacing. I'm screwed. But Joshua roared. God's with me. Courage slammed in like a swamp holy haymaker. Swamp steady flexed. Lesson. Faith swamp muscle, courage slugs fear. Day 9. Philippians chapter 4 verses 6 to 7 bellows. Do not be anxious about anything, but in every situation, by prayer and petition, with thanksgiving, present your requests to God, and the peace of God will guard your hearts. Swamp boom. Monday storm, works a buzzsaw. Kids a gremlin, I'm done. Prayer hit, God, take it. Peace guarded like a swamp sentry with a moonshine shotgun. Lesson. Prayer's swamp rocket, peace slays anxiety. Day 28. Jeremiah chapter 29 verse 11 roars. I know the plans I have for you, plans to give you hope and a future. Swamp boom. Friday chaos, tomorrow's toast. Faith slung. God's got plans. Hope hit like a swamp holy freight train. Lesson. Hope's swamp fuel, faith carries. Swamp recap, 30 days forged swamp faith. 2 Timothy chapter 1 verse 7, power. Love, grit. Joshua chapter 1 verse 9, courage. Philippians chapter 4 verse 6, prayer. Jeremiah chapter 29 verse 11, hope. Swamp real. Chaos clawing. Works frying me, God's got power, faith ruled. Lessons torched out. Swamp faith grows like a swamp king strutting with a moonshine-soaked swagger. Alright, higher calling posse. Time to swamp sling it. Hacks to flex these 30-day swamp faith lessons and strut through the swamp storm like a swamp outlaw riding a swamp rocket with a moonshine-soaked swagger that'd make a swamp gator on a meth-fueled rampage jealous as heck and ready to salute with a swamp holy roar. We're not just flapping gums or sipping swamp tea here. Fam. We're unleashing a 3-step swamp faith knockout that'll torch the swamp muck and sling you forward with lessons blazing hotter than a swamp bonfire blasting a moonshine jug into a swamp night inferno. Chaos wants to choke you. Works a soul-sucking buzzsaw shredding your swamp sanity like a swamp shark on a moonshine-soaked feeding frenzy. Kids are glitter cannon gremlins turning your swamp house into a swamp riot warzone that'd make a swamp devil proud. Bills are stacking like a swamp mud pyramid ready to bury your swamp fried soul with swamp teeth chomping. But these 30 days? They've forged your faith into a swamp Molotov cocktail. A swamp holy haymaker. A chaos-slaying chill blaster that turns the swamp night into a swamp faith strut with a moonshine glow. Buckle up tight. Here's how you flex it. Step by swamp step. With enough juice to make the swamplands shake and the swamp gators roar like they're crashing the swamp faith party. Step 1. Name the lesson. Call out what these 30 days hauled you through like a swamp brawler staring down a punk in a cage match with a swamp gator grin that says, "You picked the wrong swamp fight." Swamp punk. Night slams in like a swamp hurricane on a meth binge. Chaos clawing your guts. Works a mess. Tearing my swamp soul to shreds like a swamp tornado on a Red Bull meth spree that won't quit till I'm swamp toast. Kid's a glitter devil. Exploding tantrums like a gremlin on a sugar-high rampage that'd make a swamp rat jealous. Bills are piling thicker than swamp mud bricks stacked by a moonshine-drunk swamp gator, but stop. Posse. And roar the lesson loud like a swamp gator growling at a moonshine thief who's about to regret stepping into the swamplands. God, 30 days taught me, you got power. Not fear. Day 1 showed me prayer napalm's chaos. Day 10 taught me weeks a win. Day 25 said drop the muck. Real swamp talk. I paced the swamp night. Chaos clawing. Works frying me like a swamp fish. Kids a tornado bombing my swamp sanity, but I named it raw, 5 seconds. No fluff. God. 30 days says you're the swamp king with power. Chaos ain't my swamp boss. You're not whining. Posse. You're flexing faith like a swamp outlaw with a moonshine jug in one hand and a swamp faith smirk. Calling out the lessons under the Swamp King's Swamp Holy Watch. The swamp roar fades. He roars. Flex it. Swamp punk. So name the lesson loud. Name it proud. Let the swamp night hear your swamp faith growl shake the swamplands like a swamp quake. Step 2. Sling the faith. Hand it over quick like a swamp Molotov cocktail torching a swamp storm into ash and smoke that'd choke a swamp gator on a moonshine bender and send it crying back to its swamp mama. You've named the lesson, now sling it. Posse. Raw and rowdy. No weak sauce allowed. Just 5 seconds of swamp prayer that'd make a swamp faith champ proud. God. I'm slinging this, carry me with your power. Works a mess shredding my swamp soul. Kids a gremlin bombing my swamp life. Bills are sharks chomping, 30 days taught me you've got love. Not fear, haul this junk. Don't overthink it. Ain't no long-winded swamp sermon here. Just growl it out like a swamp outlaw tossing a moonshine jug into the swamp mud with a rebel yell that'd wake a swamp zombie from a swamp grave. Swamp real. I've stood there. Chaos clawing, works frying me. Kid's a tornado. Slung it wild. God, 30 days says you've got power, carry me. 5 seconds, boom, it's slung. Faith's roaring like a swamp holy flamethrower blasting the swamp night. His power hits, I've got you. Swamp punk. Sling it fast. Sling it hard. Let the swamp sky shake with your swamp faith strut. Prayers your swamp rocket, torch the chaos. Blast it to the swamp king. And feel his strength slam in like a swamp holy freight train rolling over the swamp storm. Step 3. Strut the growth, drop the muck. Posse. And strut with these lessons like a swamp king kicking back on a throne of swamp chill with a moonshine-soaked swagger that owns the swamp night. You named it, slung it, now strut it. 5 seconds. You got me. God, I'm steady. 30 days forged power. Love, discipline. I'm strutting with your haul. Then let it fall, work. Kid, bills, you're huge. I'm growing. I'm steady. Strut steady with faith roaring like a swamp gator on a moonshine high. Swamp real. I've slung it, work. Kid, bills. Strutted it. 30 days groomy, strength slams in like a swamp holy haymaker. Knocking worries flat. Bed's a swamp chill throne, sleep hits hard. Swamp example. Friday chaos. Works a buzzsaw. Emails piling. Kid's a gremlin. Named it. 30 days says power. Slung it. Carry me. Strutted. I'm steady. Hope ruled. 7-day challenge. 15 seconds nightly. Flex the lessons like a swamp faith champ. Night 1. Name it. 30 days. Power. Sling it. Carry me. Strutted. I'm steady. Night 2. Day 10. Weeks a win. Sling it. Strutted. Night 3. Day 25. Drop it. Faith roars. By day 5, swamp steadies your jam. Worries fade. Faith flexes. Swamp real. Day 1. Prayer slays. Strutted it. Chaos blinked. Faith's your swamp Molotov. Flex it. Strut it. Alright. Higher calling posse. Day 29's a swamp banger that'd make a swamp gator on a moonshine meth rampage salute with a swamp holy roar. And we're wrapping this swamp faith riot like a pack of swamp outlaws torching chaos into ash and smoke hotter than a swamp bonfire blasting a moonshine jug into a swamp night inferno that'd shake the swamplands. 30 days of faith. What I've learned, we've flexed it wild. Posse. And 2 Timothy chapter 1 verse 7 roared like a faith-forged flamethrower. Slinging power, love, and discipline into a swamp steady strut that'd make a swamp storm blink and run crying back to its swamp mama with its swamp tail between its swamp legs. Swamp life's a buzzsaw. Days hit like a swamp tornado freight train on a jet fuel roller coaster with a triple shot of moonshine madness tearing your guts like a swamp shark on a feeding frenzy. But 30 days forged a swamp holy haul. A faith-forged brawl that turns swamp zombies into swamp kings. We've swamp dived deep. Lessons named like a swamp brawler staring down a punk. Faith slung like a swamp gator hurling a moonshine jug. Growth strutted like a swamp king owning the swamplands, and God's your swamp king. Flexing holy biceps with power hotter than a swamp bonfire to haul your swamp mud load like a champ who don't mess around. Swamp Friday chaos nearly swamp drowned me. Work flops piling like a swamp mud avalanche crashing my swamp fried soul into swamp confetti. Kid tantrums exploding like a glitter cannon gremlin on a sugar meth high. Bills stacking like a swamp pyramid ready to bury me, till 30 days hit. God. You got power. Strength slammed in like a swamp holy freight train. Peace hit like a faith-forged haymaker. Swamp steady won. And chaos tapped out like a punk who picked the wrong swamp fight and lost bad with a swamp whimper. Swamp recap this riot. Fam, 29 days of swamp faith fury. Day 29's a crown jewel shining brighter than a swamp moonshine glow. Why? Chaos claws. 2 Timothy chapter 1 verse 7 growls. Flex it, punk. Lessons torched doubt into ash. Tail, 30 days flipped me from zombie to king. Faith ruled the swamplands. Word, Joshua. Paul, Timothy bellowed. Strut it, faith's your swamp Molotov. Blasting worries into smoke. Hacks, name it, sling it, strut it, 15 seconds nightly. Swamp steadies your jam by day 5. Turning you into a swamp king strutting with a moonshine-soaked swagger. Swamp life's a brawl, work's a hurricane. Kids are gremlins, bills are sharks, but faith says, not today. Swamp punk, torch the muck. Strut steady, flex the haul like a swamp faith champ. Swamp real, one night. Chaos clawing, work emails piling. Kid coughing, bills chomping. I'm a swamp wreck. Named it, 30 days says power, slung it. Carry me, strutted, hope ruled. That's you, posse. flex your lessons. Strut with faith. Mic toss. Drop your lesson tale below. What did 30 days teach you? Power slug chaos? Love hush fear? I'm reading every swamp growl. Swamp posse rules the swamp night. Join the 7-day challenge, 15 seconds nightly. God. Flex me. I'm steady, name it. Sling it. Strut it, by day 5. Swamp steadies your jam. Smash like if this torched your chaos. Share it with your swamp crew. Let's swamp roll this faith riot across the swamplands like a swamp hurricane with a moonshine-soaked swagger. Next up, day 30. Finishing strong, swamp faith's roaring wild. Picture this. You're strutting steady. Faith flexing like a swamp gator on a moonshine high. Slamming the finish line with a swamp holy smirk that'd make chaos blink. We're swamp storming to the end. Chaos taps out. God rules. Grab your brew, coffee, tea, swamp moonshine, flex your haul. Strut into the swamp dawn. Let's swamp torch this trail. Higher Calling's posse is lit, 29 days down. 1 to go. America swamp style. We're slaying chaos. Strutting steady with the swamp cane.